Hi everyone, my name is Carolyn Strnad. I'm a Family Resource Coordinator for the Minnesota Organization on Fetal Alcohol Syndrome and the mother of 3 children with Fetal Alcohol Syndrome, FAS. This video section contains information on how to help your child learn about his disability while learning to advocate for himself. As parents, it's our responsibility to be there for our child with a disability, to speak on their behalf, and to help them receive that which they need to be successful. But the reality is that we cannot be there all the time, and our children need to understand their diagnosis, what their strengths are and needs, and to be able to speak up to see they are provided with the accommodations that they require. It's not easy letting go, I know that from my own experience, but I challenge all of you to set a goal for yourself to help your child build self-advocacy skills. When your child's old enough to understand that he or she has a disability that makes it harder for them to learn or do things compared to other children their age, it's time to talk about the disability. There's no magic age to begin those conversations. It's more of a feeling based on observations, along with comments or questions from your child. Some parents are reluctant to share the diagnosis of FASD with their child, knowing that it will come with questions and perhaps strong feelings. But knowing a diagnosis can be a relief to a child who can tell that he or she is different than his or her peers, or is struggling with school and thinks that he is stupid and can't learn anything. Knowing that their struggles are caused by a disability may be a relief to your child. It's best to answer your child's questions as honestly and as age appropriately as possible. My children had questions and some very strong feelings about their birth mom when we shared with them their disability. It was a process of anger, grief, and acceptance. Throughout it, I encouraged them to talk about their feelings. I answered their questions as best I could, and I shared with them my belief that their birth mom didn't mean to harm them in that way. She had a disease called alcoholism and didn't receive the support she needed to have an alcohol-free pregnancy. We started discussing the fact that they had a disability in their later elementary years, early junior high years. I could see that they were struggling with the fact that learning was so hard for them and that their friends were all growing taller, while they remained at the bottom of the growth chart. We began our conversations with some general information about FAS. As they processed that information over time, they began asking questions. I mentioned earlier there is no magic age to have those discussions. The important thing is that you have them in whatever way, and by sharing that information you are most comfortable with. Remind your child that even though the disability won't go away, it doesn't define who they are as a person or put restrictions on what they can do in life. As my daughter Sarah always tells people, it's not a disability, it's a possibility, because all things are possible. For our children with FASD, learning about their disability includes learning about the disorder and how it impacts their learning and functioning independently, how to explain their disability to their friends, teachers, co-worker, and what accommodations they need, how to deal with the disability in a proactive, positive way, how to use their strengths to achieve goals, how to put things aside that they cannot change. If your child is young, they may not take an active role in the IEP process, but as they mature and develop, they will have definite opinions on what they need and how their disability impacts their ability to function. When your child is able to state their own needs, dreams, and wishes, they become a self-advocate. The first step in that journey is recognizing what things they do well and what things are hard for them. As parents, we can start that process at a very early age by recognizing when they do something well and give them verbal praise. Recognize when they're attempting to accomplish a task despite it being hard for them, such as, I see that you got your shoes on all by yourself, but it looks like you could use some help in tying them. Let me show you an easy way to do that. When it's age appropriate, talk through solutions with them. Not asking why questions, which are difficult for a child with FASD to answer, but asking them, what was hard? What made that job easier to do? Can you show me how you do it? Teach our children to ask for help and to accept help. For one of my sons, knowing that he needed help was a major challenge. He didn't even realize that he wasn't getting what was being told to him, so he had no idea if he was doing it right or wrong. It took years for him to gain that skill through baby action steps, and it's still a challenge for him in high school. But he's getting there. Thank goodness we started early with him. In Minnesota, schools begin the transition process at the beginning of ninth grade. But even before that, your child can be involved in the IEP process. My children started attending their IEP meetings while in junior high school. During those first few years, they attended the beginning of the meetings to share with the team what they thought was going well, what they would like for classes, and what help they thought they needed. Goal setting is hard for a child with FAS, and so it was up to the team to take the input they provided and formulate it into action goals. In that elementary, early junior high years, you can help your child develop self-advocacy skills by helping your child learn how to deal with disagreements and how to work within a team. Help them identify their strengths and needs and be able to express them. Explain their IEP plan to them. Don't assume that your child knows the role that others play in helping them learn. When my son was in 5th grade, he struggled with writing. We all believed that he could print his letters larger and more legible. He simply saw no purpose in doing it. His para would sit with him during every writing assignment to encourage him to use his best penmanship, but with no positive results. One night, while working with him at home on his spelling words, I mentioned to him the need for improving his writing. His comment was that Mrs. Cullen, the para, was always telling him to write bigger. I answered him that she was there to help him remember to use his best writing skills. That's what a para does. His reply was, "Oh, that's who that is. I thought she was just there to bug me." 5 years of me assuming that he recognized that the para was there to help him when he struggled. He had spent those years assuming it was just someone who liked to bug him all day. Also, learn how to make decisions by processing with your child all the thoughts that go into deciding to purchase an item in the store, for example. In other words, be an outside talking brain as you go through your day when it comes to making those decisions. Schools can also assist in teaching self-advocacy skills. Goals can be written into the IEP that first teach the skill and then prompt the use of that skill. I'm sure that you've recognized that for your child, teaching a skill in one setting doesn't necessarily mean they can use that skill in another setting. Remind the school that the skills need to be learned in each setting, including the IEP meeting, and practiced in all settings as well. Here's some examples of goals. Jack will learn the steps to making an informed decision. Moving on to a goal of Jack will be given a minimum of 2 opportunities throughout his school day to make personal choices. It's amazing how many times I catch myself making a decision for my sons instead of letting them make their own choice. Some steps in the making decisions goal. Stop and think about the situation. Ask questions about whatever you don't understand. Gather all the information you need, such as input from others, choices on a menu, cost of an item in the store, etc. Think about the good and not so good consequences that could happen as a result of that decision. Our kids may need a lot of help with this objective. Also, teach them to ask advice from someone you trust. Is the guy on the other end of the phone trying to sell you that used car someone you know and trust, or a stranger? Independence may take longer for some children than others. Each step towards independence is one more thing that the child can do for themselves, and every child needs something they can do for themselves. One of the frequent questions we get from parents is that, "I've never taken my child to his or her meeting before. Where do I start?" Start slowly with gathering through a simple explanation of what the meeting is about, and ask your child what they would like you to share about them at the meeting. For our daughter, it was a simple request to not take science class away from her. We've also had parents tell us that their child attended and it wasn't a good experience, so now they don't want them to attend anymore. I had a similar situation with my son when he was in 7th grade. We started out the meeting with Jason saying what he liked about school, and then the social studies teacher jumped in with what he thought Jason needed to be working on and doing for himself. Not good. Unfortunately, while good intended, the teacher did not understand my son's disability. Jason did not want to come again until he got to the high school. Now he attends his meetings and provides some input, leaving all the paperwork for the team to do. If the meetings are too stressful or you're concerned about the negative talk, then have your child come in for part of the meeting and leave the difficult conversations for after they leave the meeting. What happens if, as your child participates in the IEP meeting and sets some unrealistic goals? Well, here are some things that you might want to consider in that situation. How you and the team feel about a particular goal will be different than how the student feels about it. So before the alarm bells sound, check for the meaning behind your child wanting to work towards this goal. Going to college or moving to their own apartment are typically future plans that come up when asked what they want to do after high school. The first time one of my children brought that up, my mind was racing with all sorts of thoughts like, he can't live by himself, he can't even remember to brush his teeth. College, we're struggling with getting through high school. The first time it came up at the meeting, I actually ignored it because I needed time to figure out what to say. Then I started to think about all the goals I set for myself at that age and even as an adult. Goals that were something I wanted, but not always realistic once I figured out the work or the money that would go into accomplishing that goal. So when my kids come up with something they want to do after high school, I encourage them to learn all about what goes on in achieving that goal. In conclusion, I leave you with these 3 thoughts. Protecting our children from pursuing a challenging goal may also be protecting them from successfully reaching their goals. Give the gift of empowerment to your child. Teach them to be a self-advocate. With a little bit of guidance, your son or daughter could be the next young adult speaking at the rotunda on FASD Day on the Hill. For more information on self-advocacy and FASD, check out our website at www.mofas.org.